the coolest thing I'm excited about for Christmas Eve is last year we took an offering on Christmas Eve. It was our first service we ever did. It was on Christmas Eve, and we took an offering for a kid to go to kindergarten at Lopez Elementary, and we raised like $850 for that kid, and he got to go to kindergarten for free that year, which was really cool. So one tradition that we're implementing as a new church is every Christmas Eve we're going to take, and our offering is not going to be for us, it's going to be for someplace or for someone. And so, yipes, my phone. So what we're going to do this year is since we're developing this partnership with Putnam, we're going to try to raise $5,000 for Putnam to put in, I know, me too, to put in a washer and dryer in their facility, to do the hookups and everything so that kids, when they come, and Deb was going to come share about that. But we really felt like we kind of went to Deb and we said, all right, Deb, what do you got for us? You know, I want to have bigger faith, you know, and I want to, even in a group of our size and a church of our size, to say, God, what can you do? Right? So we're going to do that. So would you welcome Deb here with us, and she's going to share a little bit about that. Huh? I'll hold it for you.
No, that's okay. I have a really loud voice.
I know, it's okay. Okay, so this is Deb from Putnam Elementary. We're friends. Yeah. And she works with kids at the school, and so she's going to share why is a washer and dryer hookup such a big deal for them there.
First, I want to thank Tom for sharing his story, because this year, 207 of my kids are the kids that got the presents. And I could tell you hundreds of stories of the difference that makes in their lives. And those seeds that you plant by offering your present to them changes lives, truly. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and just thank you for doing that, and for all of you who contribute to the kids who don't have as much as others. So we were talking about wonder. And when I think of wonder, I'm always questioning, because I'm a person who questions everything. And so you're probably sitting out there thinking, why does an elementary school need a washer and dryer? You know, how does that increase learning? And because that's always the first question. But at my school, it's more than about learning. It's about helping each child become the best version of themselves. And I know that's what you want for them as well. And there's many, many reasons a washer and dryer would be beneficial to our school. One is we also have preschool at our school, and we have a lot of accidents. And so just being able to have a laundry facility would be nice for them. Second is that I don't know how many of you have been to a laundromat lately, but it's really expensive. And when Mary's Closet was operating, and now 6.8 does it, they have a clothing closet. And I had some friends that worked at them, and they would say, just irritates the heck out of me. These people come week after week, and they just get more clothes and more clothes. And they were really irritated about it. You know, why don't they take care of the things that they already have? And it's because to go to the laundromat is $4 a load. You know, and $4 buys a lot of groceries. So it's easier to either redonate or get rid of the clothes you got a month ago at Mary's Closet or Serve 6.8 and go get some more clothes, because you don't have the funds to launder them. And so we wanted to offer that service at our school, to be able to have parents come, you know, during school. We have a separate room. We have it all ready to go. We just don't have the money. And, you know, so that people could come and do laundry and have that ability to do that. Another addition is that we have the opportunity, a lot of people want to donate clothes to my school or coats. And the school district doesn't allow us to have that donation unless, I'm willing to take everything home and wash it and dry it at a certain degree and guarantee that they aren't lice or bedbug infected. And so if we had the possibility of having a room with a washer and dryer in it, that we could have volunteers come in and help launder the donated things, then we could offer our children that opportunity, and they wouldn't have to wait for the Children in Need distribution, which is 4 times a year, which is awesome, and it's an amazing event, and our kids go to it. But, you know, it's 4 times a year, and our kids need clothes more than that. So that was another opportunity that would provide a service by having a wash and dryer. And the last one is we also have an ILS program at our program in our school. And Tosh, who is our lead teacher, really encourages our ILS kids to be developing life skills, real world life skills. And so she would love for the kids to be able to wash their little blankets. They have little blankets they sleep with and stuff, and be able to launder those and fold them and just have it be theirs and just have that opportunity for them, because the wash and dryer will be near that area. So it would be really nice for those kids to have another part of their little home. And so those are some of the reasons. And when you guys came to us and said, what is your wish list? We had anything from walkie-talkies to this $5,000. The district, we have the washer and dryer, but the district was going to charge us $5,000 to install it. And that's a lot of money. And so you guys go for it. I believe you can do it. I mean, it's like I already can visualize in my head the washer and dryer running. So I just know this is a possibility and an opportunity for all of us to join together to help each of our children and their families to be the people that God intended them to be. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you so much, Tom. Appreciate that. We should take that offering right now. Should do it. So yeah, Deb did say, here's a bunch of options. We didn't be like, she's like, this is what we want. But we really wanted to take a step of faith and to say, hey, if we can get two services and a bunch of people given and even promote it, and even just, my ask would be to pray. What could you give to help do something that's really incredibly tangibly will help people, and lots of kids and lots of families in that community. So let's do it. Sound good? All right, so Christmas Eve. I'm going to pray. This segues perfectly, so thank you. We love you, Jesus. We're so grateful for you now, and would you just speak to us as you always do? And we love you. In your name we pray. Amen. So today we're going to talk about how giving creates wonder. Giving creates wonder. Have anyone givers in here? Our friend Jill, she's a giver. She's like, I wish I could give gifts to everyone. Oh my gosh. And she wraps all these presents so perfectly and everything, and she's so excited to give. Do you like it when I talk about you? Yeah. But there's this kind of a joy that happens when you give, right? We talk about the joy of when you get that great gift or whatever, but Tom's story was, it's better to give than to receive. And there is this kind of joy and excitement that comes. I remember I went to Israel and I went and I picked out real specific presents for all my family, and I was so excited to give them out. And then as people were opening them, some people just aren't all that excited. And I was like, you jerk. I'm like, what? I handpicked this thing. It is incredibly important in the Holy Land. Jesus probably walked on the rocks at one point. Seriously. But there's this kind of wonder towards giving, right? When you give, there's something that happens, I think that's exciting for us. And when we give to God, and when we give to Him, and it's something that we have, it creates in us a heart of giving, a heart of wonder. And it can really stir up the wonder that we're trying to recapture in our life. That we're not so focused on what has to get done and what's on the schedule, but we're enjoying the wonder and goodness of God, and giving can create that. So in your Bible app, since we got no screen, or the YouVersion Bible app, we have an event. If you go to events, it's in there. Turn to Matthew chapter 2, or throw it up on your Bible app, and it's in the Message version, so you can read it like that. So this week we're talking about giving. After Jesus was born, I should give you a second, I suppose, because it takes time. It's not all automatic. It's messing with my cadence here, people. After Jesus was born in the Bethlehem village in the Judah territory, this was during Herod's kingship, a band of scholars arrived in Jerusalem from the east, and they asked around, where can we find and pay homage to the newborn king of the Jews? We observed a star in the eastern sky that signaled his birth. We're on a pilgrimage to worship him. So Matthew chapter 2 is the story of the Magi, the wise men coming to see Jesus. Next week we're going to talk about when the shepherds come to see Jesus, and the star and the angels and the glory of God. We're talking about the glory of God next week. It's going to be awesome. But at the day that Jesus was born, the star of Bethlehem, or the star shone in the sky, and that's what led the shepherds to Christ. But it's also what led the Magi to Christ. So the Magi are, and there's a lot of thought of what the Magi could be. It could be anywhere from a wise man or a scholar, or it could be even a scientist at that time, or a doctor. It could even be a sorcerer. or like a soothsayer, or like a fortune teller. In the old times, there was not necessarily like all these, like sometimes the doctor, the philosopher, the magician, the prophet priest was one person, right? It was basically it wasn't necessarily even a king, but it was someone that maybe was ranked high in the Persian Empire or whatever. So they think that the wise men came from Persia. They were probably scholars or even like magicians. They like basically would, if you think of the Old Testament, when Joseph was in jail, I'm trying to remember this story as we go. When Joseph's in jail and the Pharaoh has a dream and they don't know, and he brings in his Magi to tell him, and they have no idea because they're just dudes making it up mostly. And then they bring Joseph and he translates the dream. So they think it's someone like that, someone who's close to the king, someone that was in authority, someone who had, but even to some degree, it could have been like a not godly magician, like a not godly like mystic or something like that, right? Which I think is incredibly intriguing and profound. The way that we should see other people, right? That God just doesn't reveal himself just to ones that match him and think the same way he thinks and believe the same things. God reveals himself to all people, no matter what, even if their views and everything is skewed, right? Which is an important thing to understand. So the Magi come, they've seen the star, and they're like, oh my gosh, this king has been born. We got to go, worship him. Let's honor him. And then they go to Herod, who's the king of Israel at the time, okay? And when the word of inquiry got to Herod, he was terrified. And not Herod alone, but most of Jerusalem as well. Herod lost no time. He gathered all of the high priests and religious scholars in the city together and asked, where is the Messiah supposed to be born? They told him, Bethlehem in the Judea territory. The prophet Micah wrote about it plainly. It's you, Bethlehem, in Judah's hand, no longer bearing up the rear. For from you will come the leader that will shepherd, rule my people, my Israel. So Herod hears about this, and they've been waiting for the Messiah. It's been since the beginning of time. There's going to be a Messiah that's going to come, and he's going to be the king, and he's going to reign forever, and he's going to restore Israel, right? And right now, in this time, the Roman Empire had come in and taken over control of Israel, but still Herod was ruling as king. So Herod's freaking out, and he brings in the prophets. Okay, when was this supposed to happen? Where's the baby supposed to be born? Where's the Messiah coming from? And they say it's from Bethlehem. And he arranged a secret meeting with these scholars from the east. Pretending to be as devout as they were, he got them to tell them exactly when the birth announcement star appeared. And then he told them the prophecy about Bethlehem. And he said, go find this child, leave no stone unturned. As soon as you find him, send word, and I will join you at once in your worship. They instructed by the king, they set off. So Herod is not interested in worshiping the king, right? So like after the story is when Herod goes on the genocide of any child that's born under the age of 2, okay? And after the story is when Mary and Joseph and Jesus have to flee to Egypt and live there till he's 12, and they come back to Israel, come back to Jerusalem. Jesus was a refugee. And he was instructed by the king, and they set off. And then the star appeared again, the same star that had seen in the eastern skies. So they think that the Bethlehem star appeared, and then maybe within the next year or year and a half, or maybe even 2 years, the star appears again. So the nativity scene, that's all beautiful, and there's no Myrrh anywhere, and it's like a nice stable, and the shepherd are there on this side, and the wise men are on this side. It's not really how it went down, right? The shepherd came while he was born, but the wise men or this Magi came probably a year, maybe a year and a half or 2 years later. So the star appears again. Same star that they had seen in the eastern skies. And he led them on until it hovered over the place of the child. They could hardly contain themselves. They were in the right place. They had arrived at the right time, and they entered the house and saw the child in the arms of Mary, his mother. Overcome, they kneeled and they worshiped him. Overcome, they literally laid onto their face to worship the king, who was probably sitting in Mary and Joseph were really poor. Right? It wasn't a very kingly place. It wasn't this. That's why they went to Herod. They were like, the king is born. He must be here, right? He had no idea. They're sitting probably in some sort of shack or hut or something that they're waiting in. Overcome, they kneeled and worshiped him, and they opened up their luggage and prepared gifts, presented it to him: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They brought treasures to Jesus. And in a dream, they were warned not to go back to Herod, so they worked out another route, and they left the territory without being seen, and they returned to their own country. So the wise men, the Magi, the scholars, the doctors, the scientists, however, it's kind of was all one thing at the time. They're astrologers. They're watching the stars. They're seeing how the signs in the stars, right? And they come and they find the king. They follow the star, and they come and they bring these gifts to him: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Okay, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So these gifts are incredibly profound parallels to Christ's life, right? So they come thinking that this little baby is the king. And so they come and they bring these three things. First, they bring gold. They bring gold. Gold's a pretty easy one to understand, right? They bring treasure. The gold is a kingly gift. You give gold to those who, it's funny, why do they give more gold to kings? They already have all the gold. I don't know how that works, but that's what they do. They came and brought gold. They brought their treasure to him. So how do we regain our wonder? How do we regain our wonder in God? So last week we talked about how we're going to regain our wonder by seeing God's work in us, seeing his miracles unfold, seeing him answer prayers, seeing him do the impossible. We regain wonder in that. But now we can regain our wonder in God by giving. And not just giving to other people, but giving back to God. When I give back to God aspects of my life and areas of my life, what happens is all of a sudden God can do more and work more in those areas. And I can have moments where I experience more wonder of God just because I've given him who I am again, or my life again. And so the first thing they come is they bring gold, they bring their treasure. And so the first way to regain your wonder is to bring your treasure to him. Bring your treasure. So the two most treasure type things in our lives, besides people, are time and our finances, right? Time is like it doesn't care. It just keeps going, right? And we don't ever get it back. It's the most valuable thing we have. When something wastes my time in my life, I'm like, no more of that. Don't waste my time, right? Time is incredibly valuable. So how do we regain our wonder in God? Is we give our time to him. We give him some of our time. And that can look in a lot of ways, like yesterday, serving the people at Children in Need. When I serve other people, I don't just think I'm serving other people, but I do like what Jesus says, where he says, hey, when you do unto the least of these, you do unto me. And when I give God my time, when I prioritize my life around him and what he wants to do, and I just give him even if it's a moment in the morning or an hour in my week where it's just focused on him, God, this is just me and you time. When I give him my time, my most valuable, precious commodity, then in that time he can work. And in that time I create a wonder of who he is again. Like yesterday, just to serve the people and just to say, hey, we will pray for you, and if you need anything, call us, And that kind of connection was just like exciting for me. I don't know about you, but it just creates excitement. And it creates, God, what can you do? What can you do here? How can you work more? How can we be more amazed by you? When I give of God in my time, it allows him to work in my life. I think a lot of us wonder why God isn't working in our life, but I don't think we've given him even a minute of our time. Like, well, God's not doing anything today. What the heck? Well, if you stopped and said, God, would you do something today? And if you enjoyed him and listened and taken the time. I talk about space in my life. God, I just need a little bit of space. And space to me is like, I just need time where I don't have all the things I got to do and all my phone going off during church. But just like space for God to do his thing, to work, to talk, to speak. And when you give God your time, you will gain a wonder of who he is because you will encounter him. And a byproduct of encountering him is, oh my gosh, God, I'm encountering you. It's wonder. So that's why giving every time to serve here, giving every time to be with the Lord, to sit. Out there in the lobby, we went and got some trail maps for you, because we think that you can find God out there, right, where your cell phone doesn't work and where it smells so great and piney. Right? And that's a way that we should connect to God, not just through his word, not through prayer, but through his creation. And what that does is it creates space. God, would you speak to me? Would you regain the wonder of who you are? Next thing is giving of your finances. Got really nervous in here. Just kidding. When I give of my finances, it relinquishes the control that money has in my life. If you become a first and best giver in your life, what it does is it allows God to do wonderful things through your other percent of your income. So if you become a first and best giver, a 10% giver, a tither, which is what that word means, God can work more through your 90 than he ever could through your 100, just so you know. He will take your 90 and expand it and make it, you'll be like, how do I have what I have? How are we able to give what we can give? How are we able to do this with just 90 when I couldn't do this with 100? That's how God works. I give him my time, I give him my first and my best, and God can do more through the 90 than he can through 100. And he says to you, test me on it. Try me. See if I will not pour out the blessings of heaven on you. See if I will not push back evil and the devourer of your crops and your lands and of your time. And see if I will not make your name great and not give you opportunity to show other people who I am. Because giving God my first and my best allows him to do exceedingly and abundantly more. When we give $5,000 on Christmas Eve, 5,001. It's not because we can do it and it's in our budget. It's going to be because God has done a work. And God will take that gift and he'll bless what we have abundantly. I could talk like 9 more hours on that, but we got to roll. First thing we do, oh my gosh, Siri, I'm not having it with you today. First thing we do, we give our treasure. You want to regain your wonder of your life. I lose my wonder when I have no time for the Lord and I have no time for the things that matter most. I lose my wonder when I hang on tight to my finances instead of allowing God to take what I have and abundantly, richly bless it. The next thing is that they bring frankincense. Frankincense is an incense or a perfume. It smells great. They put it in things, and they would in the Old Testament they would use it as a way of offering prayers to the Lord. They would pray and offer incense, and the aroma or the fire or the smoke that would come up would be like, hey, we're offering these prayers, this aroma to the Lord. Psalm 101 verse 2 says, "May my prayer be set before you like an incense. May it be lifted up to your hands and be like the evening sacrifices." So the frankincense had to do with worship. Had to do with my life is yours. And what God can do when you say something like this, God, I give you my life, I give you my heart. God can do crazy things that will create a wonder in you. When I was 19 years old, all my friends had left for college. I didn't want to stay home and go to the community college, but I did because I didn't know what else to do. And so I was just kind of lost, and this one guy that I knew, he would invite me over, we'd hang out, and then he would ask me about Jesus, and I was like, let's play GoldenEye. I don't want to talk about Jesus right now, right? And I remember one day he asked me, because I've been a follower of Jesus my whole life for the most part, but I haven't really given him my heart. It's like, when are you going to give God when are you going to be all in on this? And I'd never thought about it that way. I never thought that there was a difference between me just accepting Jesus as Savior so I can go to heaven, so I escaped hell. Yes. Which is good. As opposed to saying, I'm going to give him my whole life. And I got in my car and I drove home and I just prayed very simply, God, I give you my whole life. And that has created more wonder in who God is than anything I've ever done. And then every day I pray, God, I give you my whole life. Romans 12 says, therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters. The word urge there isn't just like, hey, this would be a good thing to do, but it's Paul pleading to the church. I urge you, brothers and sisters, my brothers, in view of God's mercy, because of what God has done in your life and in mine, to offer your body as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. I think people never experience the wonder of God because we've never given him our life and said, God, show me all that you have. Because God will not force himself on you. He will not infiltrate your life in ways that you don't want him to, because he's a gentleman, he's a good father. He will patiently be there standing until we invite him in. It's called free will. It's the greatest gift we've been given. And he says, if you will give your life to me as a holy sacrifice, no more offering, we don't have to sacrifice cows or anything like that. That's great. I don't want to deal with that. You can come right to me, but you are the final sacrifice to me. Come and sacrifice your life. Say, I'm going to give you my life. This is in view of what you've done, in view of who you are, I'm going to give you my life. And when you do that, the fear is that God will take away, or God will make you kind of like that weird Christian dude, right? Or God will make you just... It won't be as good a life, but the lie, that's the lie from the pit. The truth is what that'll do, is that'll allow God to do great and mighty things, and it'll create more wonder and excitement for who he is. So no matter what comes, there's this excitement that, I'm God's, I'm his, and no matter what happens, he's going to take care of me. He's going to do a work in and through me. And many people miss out on the wonder because they're so afraid to say, God, I give you my life. What if God makes me quit my job? What if I can't pay my bills? What if I can't? Fear. Those things are not God. But God says, why would I take those things from you? Why wouldn't I take the things that are in your life and make them better? Why wouldn't I, as a good father, do everything I can to make everything in your life work and move and have impact and do things that you never could do on your own? We have to give to God our hearts. And we should give God our hearts every single week, every single day. Sometimes I do it by the hour. Because I'm like, all right, I'm taking that back. I'm being a jerk. I'm trying to control it all again. Lord, I give him my heart. And when I give him my life, I've experienced so much wonder of God, of just who he is. Not even of all the stuff he does, but just like, oh my gosh, the God who created all things really is here. And he really loves me. He really loves you. And God will not do that unless you ask him. He's already done that through his creation and through the breath that you breathe and the sight that you have and all these things. But God is patient and gentle. But you will experience more wonder, more excitement when you give him your life than if you don't. And it's scary. Last one is myrrh, which is a funny word to say. Myrrh was used for anointing. So they would use myrrh. It was a fragrant oil, and they would anoint kings with myrrh. But they use it for embalming, right? It's an odd gift to give a little baby, right? Here's some embalming fluid, child. Good luck with your life, right? The last thing you give him is you give him your purpose. You give him the reason why you're here. And when the Magi came, they brought embalming fluid. And in John 19, after Jesus had died, they said they took Jesus' body, and two of them wrapped it and put spices and linens on it. And this was in accordance to the Jewish customs. At the place that Jesus was buried, there in the garden tomb, which they laid him. And the word for spices and wrapping, they have the word myrrh in there. But they used that when Jesus died. When I come to God and I give him my treasure, okay, I'm going to give you some time, Lord. I'm going to give you a little bit of money. That's scary. I'm going to do it. I'm going to give you my heart, God. The next thing he'll ask for is give me the reason why you're here. I know that we were like, what's my purpose? I don't know what's my purpose. I read 20 books on it, still don't know what my purpose is. Our purpose is to share with this world Christ's purpose for coming. That's our purpose. Every one of you, your purpose is to share with this world Christ's life and the reason why he came to die and to be risen and to rise again. Our purpose is to share people that. And so many people miss out on it's just like when you give something sacrificially and you have that joy of like, oh man, I didn't have this, but I gave it, and oh my gosh, God did this thing. There's like you can only produce that type of wonder and amazement through doing that, right? And the same thing is about giving your purpose to God, is that you can only experience certain aspects of his love and his goodness and his wonder by giving your heart and your life and your purpose to him. The reason why I'm here on this earth, why I'm still breathing and walking and moving through this life, is so that I can share with people the wonder of who Jesus is and what he has done and why he came to be born, to live a perfect life, to die, and to restore and save all of us in this whole world. That's your purpose. And so many people miss out on the blessing that God wants to have because we don't live our lives around that. We live our lives around other things and great things, like our families and our careers and things that are fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But all those things should be secondary to our purpose of sharing the love and life of Jesus with other people and telling people the story of his life or showing him the story of his life by giving and walking through and helping families who are in need have what they have. You only gain a certain aspect of God's wonder and glory by being used by him and saying, God, use me in any way. Show me what you can do. So God took me, a little North Dakota boy, grew up in a town of 2,000, fairly mediocre at all things. And we had this little rock and roll band when I was in college. And we had an opportunity to go to the Ukraine and play. They're like, hey, there's this guy, he does there was this strong man. It's a long story. He bent bars and stuff. It was insane. But then he told people about Jesus. I went to the Ukraine, and for 10 days we would play our rock and roll music in English, and then they would tell people about Jesus, and we had 600 people accept Jesus in a week. This old 80-year-old Soviet communist woman who grew up she went through all of it and gave her life to Jesus and was blind in one eye and was healed. And we're in this old town of Odessa, Ukraine. It's a beautiful old city. And we start playing our songs, and this crowd of 200 youth come, and they're just playing. It starts to rain. And we're like, oh, this is bad for musical gear. And they say, well, we're going to go back to the church. Everyone come back to the church. And it was literally this mob of people. And people were calling their friends, hey, come see this band from USA Rock and Roll, right? And then we get there, and we were our driver got lost, and it was very funny. But we get to the place, and we open the doors, and it's packed. The church is packed, 200, 300 kids. And we walk in, and they treat us like we're the Beatles. They're like, whoa, going crazy, the Beatles are here. The Beatles were a band, Dylan. And then we just played and had a blast, and these kids were into it, and then we shared our hearts, we shared our story of who Jesus is and why we're here. And this one boy was orphaned from Armenia, and he'd lived there, and he just gave his life to Jesus, and he's involved in that church. And I remember getting home that night and laying in bed in this really uncomfortable bed in the Ukraine. And I just was like, I get to share your story. You've used me for things that are far beyond myself. And there's nothing that I can thank God more than those moments and these moments. And many people miss out on that wonder and laying in bed at night and just being so spent, so tired, got nothing left, but you gave it all for him that day. That you gave your energy and you had a ton more faith than you thought you had. And you said a lot more things you thought you knew, and you went for something and you did it for him, and God did a work, and you're like, wow. So many people miss out because they feel so inadequate, or they don't feel like God wants to use them, or whatever reason. And I just would encourage you, give your life to share his story. Because at the end of the day, when you lay in bed, and whether you made 20 grand that day or you shared someone his love, that feeling outweighs it no matter what. Or you share love with kids, and we were spent last night, and I fell asleep on the couch. I was like, you know what? This was a day well spent. The most tragic thing you do in life is you live a life without purpose. Or all you do all day is worry about your circumstances. What a tragic waste. For a God who said, invite me in, allow me to work, and I will use you. And I will do things through you never thought you could do. And you will lay in bed at night, and you will just breathe that last breath before you fall asleep. And it'll be such satisfaction and joy and wonder. Would you come? Rach, just come. We're really late. Wow. That's a big deal, you guys. Man, if you could do anything, you don't need to know all the theology of it. You don't need to understand and be like 100% on this whole thing. But if you start giving your life, you don't have to change. Don't quit your job and start a ministry. Don't do that, please. That's not fair. That's not. And also, this role doesn't win in God's eyes. Do you understand that? This role is way down at the bottom as servant. Jesus led from the bottom as the good shepherd to push his people forward, to lead them, to guide them. And every single one of us in our roles, in our families, in our jobs, in our schools, wherever we're at, get to be the purpose of Christ there. And you will not experience a wonder like that unless you do it. And God won't be mad at you, but he'll just say, man, you're missing out. It's the best life. I say it a lot. This is the best life. It's not because of what I have, but it's because of what we get to do for him. Because I know at the end, when I take my last breath, I want to enter in and just tell Jesus, I did everything I could. Everything I could. And you'll want that experience too. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, we're so grateful for you. Thank you that your presence is here. I ask that, Lord, that we would not be afraid to give you these things, Lord, because these things don't restrict our life and they don't rob us of other opportunities. God, these enhance us and they enhance our lives and they give us more blessing and more joy, and we experience more of the wonder of you and what you can do. So God, as we give of our treasure, of our time, of our finances, as we give of our hearts, Lord, just as a living sacrifice, Lord, use us. Take our hearts, Lord. Let our lives be an act of worship to you. And as we give of our purpose, the reason why I live and breathe today is not for my own will and my own gain, but for yours. And in the process, Lord, you give to us and you expand us and you work through us. Would you speak to us now? We love you in the name of Jesus.